we're going to show some slides today. One of my goals is to make sure that you get to hear the story and see the story. It's a great story. So want to really like dive into this and bring it like personal for everyone here. Who knows about, like, who follows Kory on LinkedIn? Okay. So most of you know like how impactful you are. My friend John Bradshaw made a list of people with the most followers in Utah, and I think you were like number 1 or number 2.
It's like maybe 4 or 5.
Okay. But point is like your message has really resonated. Not just for you as an entrepreneur, but you as a human. And when I thought about like who could we bring next, like we discussed this, you were like, you're not necessarily the person who wants to be up on stage the most, but you were open to having the conversation. And then you posted about how relevant and important Mallory was to the whole journey. I was like, okay, it has to be both of you.
Yeah.
So
thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's talk a little bit about one of the first things I always ask is like, what makes you you? Like, if you were to look back at your childhood, at your life, like, what have been the defining moments of like who you are today?
I'll go first.
Yeah, you go first.
Well, first off, my mom is here somewhere. Everything that I am is because of my mom. She's here.
Shout out Kayleen!
Yeah, shout out Kayleen. So I grew up in Los Angeles, in Burbank, California. Has anyone flown into Burbank, maybe? Great airport.
It's the place.
Wonderful place
LA.
to fly into. So I grew up, born and raised in Burbank, and I got to watch my parents work extremely hard.
But I think it is interesting, just to call this out for a second. Your dad was a movie star.
Yes, my dad was a movie star, and then for his family, I watched him go from like movie star to basically becoming a caterer.
He was the runner-up to being Luke Skywalker for content.
Yes,
which is amazing.
Yeah, so he lost out to Mark Hamill, which was incredible. My dad had a great career, and then I got to watch my parents raise our family in a very different environment. So I'm the oldest boy in the family. I have 1 older sister and 2 little brothers. And so what makes me me, I would say, being raised in a family where my parents worked really, really hard, and then taking on more responsibility than I needed to, right? So I did really, really well in school, but I was also worrying about all the burden that a child puts on a parent. I was hyper aware of those types of things as a little kid. And so I was just always taking on more than I needed to, really mature, excelled in school and sports and social life. And, I'm the oldest boy, and I think that I really took on that like oldest boy mentality. In different cultures around the world, like the oldest son is the heir, or the person that, carries the torch.
Carries the weight, carries the burden.
And I felt that burden from a young age, and I was always working to live up to the expectations of my parents and our culture and our
So I mean, they grow up. While you're growing up, they're the food that is always there at movie sets. Like that was your dad's business,
right?
Not just caterers.
No, yeah. So craft service. Does anyone know what craft service is? So it's like caterers, kind of like Chick-fil-A catered a lunch, right? But like there's someone, if this were a movie set, that would be here all the time to have pre-breakfast snacks and breakfast arranged and in between breakfast and lunch and people coming and going. Yeah. Like people on all different schedules have to be fed whenever they're hungry.
Yeah.
And my dad was in charge of making sure that was the case for Tom Cruise and all these types of people. And then my mom, she baked the brownie. Basically, I always smelled like brownies. She baked hundreds, millions of brownies out of our home kitchen. And so for people like my dad and other craft service people like my dad, she supplied the baked goods for like all of LA.
And I think just a funny part to add to that is like, you mentioned to me, like, you probably have eaten more popsicles than anyone else in the world. And that's partially also because there were always popsicles on set.
Yes, because my dad, we had a trailer always parked in front of our house, and he would buy wholesale popsicles, like for hundreds of people every day. So there'd be coolers of dry ice and popsicles at wholesale, like unmarked craft boxes, and you'd have to look inside and see, is it a strawberry shortcake? Is it like a fudge pop? You didn't know.
Yeah.
But we always had popsicles in our driveway, and me and my best friends across the street, or I was neighbors with my best friend, and we would eat countless popsicles for a decade and a half.
Yeah. So then a little on the more serious side, like I want to hit this one is like you're 15, 16. Your parents have started a restaurant, it doesn't go well. You feel the pressure of like what's going on in the house to be like, I'm going to remove myself from this situation. I'm going to leave home.
Yeah, and I think one important detail there is like that's right when I also started to really struggle with depression. So I would go to school, and my brother would go to, he was 1 year younger, and so he'd see me in high school, star athlete, star student, super cool, super popular. And then I'd go home.
Kory!
No, yeah, not in like a boastful way. I'm just trying to set the stage here. And then I'd go home, and my family and my brothers and my sister would see me be the worst version of me. Super depressed, very mean, cranky, go in my door, slam my door shut, not talk to anybody, listen to like aggressive music. And so, there's we had just moved to a new home. I moved away from my best friend, which was really hard for me. I didn't realize at the time how difficult that was, but it was hard for me. And then, so there was all these factors that kind of came together in one, 18-month period really that was just really difficult. And all of a sudden I was thinking about like suicide. And I'd go to school, I'd be really successful, and I'd come home and I'd stay up all night, sleeping very little. I was waking up at 4:50 to go to early morning seminary, which is insane. I was going to sleep at 1 a.m. after all my AP class homework. Like, it was just stupid. And so I kind of did a lot of it to myself. But yeah,
there's so many things we know now about like how you don't.
I was so dumb.
No, yeah, but it is part of the journey. You just, unless you know that, it's hard to like be there. Like, no way you're going to be in a good mental state with all of those things stacked on.
3.5 hours of sleep a night for years.
So Mallory, let's hear a little bit of your journey, because it's also a fun one.
Yes. Okay. So I feel like, is this too far?
No,
okay.
It's
Okay. For me, growing up, I'm the middle of 9 kids, and that pretty much defined, I don't know, most things about me, whether you realize them or not. As you get older, you're like, that probably had something to do with everything. So I was pretty go with the flow, which is still, I was telling my mom recently, Kory probably hates this. I think I say it's fine 50 times a day to him.
Anything. Everything is fine. I'm like, it's absolutely not fine.
Like, we pull up to a play, we're 20 minutes late, there's no parking. I'm like, it's fine. Like, everything's fine. And because it always is, right? Like, in the end. And so that's the perspective I adopted from my family, my parents, from watching them go through tough stuff. But I think because when you have 9 kids, you have to. You have to say it's fine. Which we found like the one picture of me eating a popsicle when I was a kid. So we both have our popsicle stories.
Yeah.
But that was just my perspective. I just learned, you have older siblings that have hard things going on, and you just kind of adapt and think, I'll just stay in my lane, just do what I can.
And I think maybe let's spend a second, if you're okay, talking about your sister and like kind of you observing that as like a, whoa.
Yeah, and so I think a lot of what framed my life, I grew up, we moved around. I was born in North Carolina. We moved to Hong Kong, then to Tennessee, then back to North Carolina, and then we settled in Utah. And my parents moved to Hong Kong with 6 kids. Like, my mom got off the plane and was like, this was a grave mistake, And then they changed their mind over the course of the next couple of years. They were like, this is maybe okay. They loved it by the end. But I feel like we moved to Utah, and, it just was tough. And my older sister, there's the first 3, the middle 3, and the little 3. That's like how we're divided up. So the first 3, my sister was raped when she was 14. And it just completely threw everybody, and I was in the stage where I didn't know what was going on. I was too young. I knew there was stress. I knew there were hard things happening, but I didn't know what. And through that, though, and through all the hard things, my parents were just pretty good at keeping things joyful. And I watched my sister, because obviously that's an incredibly difficult thing to go through, and she struggled for probably 20 years after that.
I mean, still
maybe.
Yeah, but I feel like just now in the last couple of years is when we're like, she's okay, like she's made it through the other side. But
I think just part of that is like,
be super depressed.
Yeah, but the drugs associated,
it was super hard. Yeah. And so I just watched like the drugs, the alcohol, all of the stuff, and I was like, okay, I need to. Like, I just felt like there was so much safety in doing good things. Like, I could be okay if I got good grades. It was like my way of controlling life was like, I'll get good grades, I'll do this stuff, and everything will be fine. And that was like, the cautionary tale for me. But then when I met Kory, and he's like, I really struggle with depression, I was kind of like, yeah, I mean,
It's
are you
fine.
an alcoholic though? Like, you know, like, do you do heroin? Like, I was like in my head, I was like, is it just that? Like, because I can handle
Is that the worst you
Like,
got?
is that, like, tell me more, you know? But really it was like, it didn't scare me. I had seen a lot and I wasn't afraid. And so I feel like that was, yeah, shaped a lot of who I was. And so it's fine. Everything's fine.
And we have the India picture up here because I think it's just like a cute little interesting side part of this is like Kory comes home from his mission. He's like, I'm going to be a McKinsey this, I'm going to be an HBS student this, like super motivated, super driven, has this dream and vision. And in no way does going to India make sense as part of that. Talk a little bit about like how that ends up happening.
So yeah, I served a mission for my church in Cambodia, and I decided to study, like I kind of spoke Spanish before my mission from like soccer and high school Spanish and stuff, and like all of a sudden I was like pretty good at Spanish. And then I went to Cambodia and I learned Cambodian, like in the MTC, I really excelled. And so I was like, man, I think like languages might be my thing. And so I came back from my mission, I studied linguistics at BYU. And then like in my first class back, the TA gets up and he's like, hey, I'm taking a group of students to India. And I had no money. I had no reason to go to India. Like it was just, I chose linguistics because it was easy and it was a short major. And all of a sudden I was like, I'm going to spend a semester in India, you know, studying Telugu and cricket. Like
completely not connected to the thought of what you had in your head.
Right, not in line with my goals. And what the further removed I get from that experience, the more I'm like, that was crazy that I went to India. I would never.
Kory, you'd be hard pressed to get him on a plane. Like,
well, yeah, I don't go anywhere really, but then I went, and there were 2 boys in this like pre-departure class and like a dozen girls, and she was one of those girls. And after the first class, she came up to me and introduced herself, and we were totally infatuated. And I was like, now I'm going to India for sure. So then, yeah, we went to India. We courted while in India. We were there for 4 months. We courted secretly. You're not allowed to date on those programs.
And we had dated before we left, but
I mean,
like a bit.
We kissed. So we didn't date.
We kissed before we left. That's true. We had spent
a lot of time together.
We tell the young men and the young women when we're in church. We dated before we left.
Yeah, we didn't date. We definitely like kissed.
There were vibes.
And then in India, we couldn't date, and so and then at this point, I'm the only boy on the trip.
Yeah.
1 boy, 11
meant he had his own
girls.
apartment.
I had my own house. And so every night it'd be like, okay, good night, everyone. Girls to their house, me to my house. And then Mallory would like leap across the roofs like in Aladdin. She'd be in my room and we'd watch like Mighty Ducks 2 until like 2 in the morning. And we got back from that trip and we were married like 3 weeks later.
4 weeks.
4 weeks.
Come on.
Which is incredible.
Everyone was going to be in town.
Yeah,
for
I'm
Christmas.
sure my mom, like, I went to India single,
Yeah.
and I came back like, hey mom, you need to come to Utah for Christmas. Like, we're getting married on the 21st of December. Like, I'm sure both sides of the family, well, her family thought it's fine, and my family was like panicking, I'm sure, right? Like, that's insane. Like, this guy, he wants to go to McKinsey for 2 years, go to HBS, do investment bank, you know, whatever. That was who I was.
Yep.
And all of a sudden, I'm going to India and marrying some girl my parents have never met. Like, incredible.
Which is wild. But it's just I just love that part of the story to give you some context for like how they work as a team. I share that with you because the things that follow I think only happen because of this background. So we'll get into what's next.
Guys,
So,
and I get super nervous. Like, I was sitting in the parking lot for a few minutes. I wear a sweatshirt because it like makes you feel like more
Safe and
protected.
cozy.
But I'm gonna take my sweatshirt. I feel good.
Let's go.
I'm freaking hot. I'm gonna go sweatshirtless for a second.
okay, so maybe we'll let Mallory tell this part of the story then.
Yes,
Like,
yeah.
You guys get home.
We
You're
get
broke
home.
students.
We're broke students. We just got married. We realized you can get FAFSA once you're married.
Pell Grants, baby.
Pell Grants for the win.
And that just funds the next few years of our life. And after we graduate from BYU, we have both gotten scholarships. We both got Pell Grants. And again, a bold move from Kory surprises me for Christmas and is like, we're going to Europe post-graduation for 6 weeks. And like, we basically just spent all of our savings on this trip to Europe with no job lined up afterwards. And so we went, and while we were in Paris, Kory loved the sockless look. Like, all the guys in Italy and Paris are walking around in like their nice leather shoes. And Kory's like, no way they're not actually wearing socks.
I mean, when you go sockless, like, it's like a swamp in there,
sticky,
right? Like
yeah.
it's horrible. It ruins the shoes. They smell horrible. And then it's just so uncomfortable all day. And so I was like really infatuated with this really great European style. I'd been to Europe before, but like not for this long, and certainly not with my lover, you know? And so it was like this cool
Much
trip.
more romantic.
And I was just like,
pregnant.
and I wanted to do management consulting, but surprise, surprise, like McKinsey and Bain aren't like, oh, we need a linguistics major, you know, where we got our one linguistics major we were looking for. And so then I was like, okay, FIFA, UEFA, like I'm gonna try to work in soccer. Also, like didn't work. And so we went to Europe and no job. She was pregnant. No one knew, but she was pregnant on that trip.
Yeah, we'd been married for
and so we would
2
like,
years at that point.
Yeah, and so we get on that trip and we're like, okay, no-show socks for men, interesting. So we get back to Provo, and my net ID at BYU still worked. And so I could log onto the school computers, and I could like schedule tutoring, and like I could learn Adobe Photoshop and Illustrator. And so I started to go, I mean, these are obviously on Paint, like MS
Microsoft
Paint,
Paint.
for those of you that are old enough to remember Paint. Absolutely horrible designs. Like the sock on the right, far right, it was called the Manimal. Just like it shows you like my level
didn't
of
make
creativity
that one.
back
We
in the
didn't
day.
make that
It
one.
never got made, but I thought, what if you put a paw print on the bottom of a sock?
Fire, bro.
Well, how manly, you know? And so we got back, and then I found out about Alibaba. It was like I could take these horrible designs, I could send them to this factory in China, and they would like kind of make a rough idea of what I designed. And then I was slowly getting good at Illustrator on the BYU campus for free, leveraging my undergrad degree, linguistics, you know. And then like a few months later, we had samples, and then we launched a Kickstarter campaign for the No-Show socks, which was, oh yeah, there it is, yeah. So you can see like a sock. I remember thinking those product images were like groundbreaking. Like they're so bad, but we did, you know, $46,000. And this was back in the, like I was just spamming. You did this?
I backed him. I still have him.
Oh, you backed him.
Yes.
I mean, yeah, so I've known Brandon for, I mean, he was like, I think we were a really early client. I mean, he was an early vendor, I should say. Like, I don't know how, but he helped me back in the day. And so we did this Kickstarter campaign. We made as many socks as we could with $46,000. And that first year, we did very little revenue. We had no idea what we were doing. But we were growing a pretty sizable Instagram account. So we were selling socks, we'd sell some, but what was really working was growing an Instagram account. And we were going to Nordstrom Rack, shout out Nordstrom Rack's return policy. You could go like to any Nordstrom Rack, buy a bunch of pairs of shoes, photograph them for weeks, and then 90 days later, it's just like no questions asked, return. So we'd go to Burbank. We'd go to Burbank, my hometown. We'd bring like an extra suitcase, go to the Nordstrom Rack, and then buy all the cool shoes, bring them up here, shoot them here.
You had better variety in Burbank.
Well, yeah, and it was just like...
We just happened to be there visiting. We didn't like fly out for
any
the purpose of going to Nordstrom
anytime
Rack.
we could go to Nordstrom Rack, we would. Yeah. Because like what ends up in Orem, Utah is very different than what ends up in Burbank. Sure. And so we grew like from 0 to 300,000 or 400,000 followers in like 18 months on Instagram as a sock company that looked 100% like a shoe company.
Yeah.
Because it was weird to post pictures.
Well, yeah, if you guys want to try something cool experiment, you take pictures of your feet with no-show socks on and post them on Instagram. And you're not going to get a lot of customers necessarily, but you're going to get a lot of messages.
A lot of weirdos.
It was like me in Provo, Utah with my young wife. Like,
we're like,
very eye-opening.
No.
Like,
we did not have that on our radar.
was not prepared for fetishes.
Never another picture of a foot again, just shoes.
You could have sold those. That could have been a lot more money.
Now feet pics. It was OnlyFans like back in the day.
Yeah.
It was early. We were early on that.
Early trend. So you move from just posting pictures of socks to posting pictures of the socks like rolled up in the shoes.
Yeah, and just people like wearing shoes that it's
had
just like
socks on.
sockless look.
Yeah.
You know, like that was the vibe.
Talk a little bit about your brick wall at the side of your house that you made
Oh
look
my
feel
gosh,
like New
we
York.
lived in this like little house in downtown Provo. It was $675 a month, which was like a big jump from our previous house, which was $500 a month. And we were like, "Oh, this is
I was working at the MTC. She
I was at the library.
was at the library. I was like, we were kind of buying and selling board games on Amazon, like arbitrage, like make a few cents per
Kory was a
game.
fly
Like,
fishing guide. Like
we were scrappy. It was scrappy
But we
stuff.
had this brick house, and we were like, if we put the right filter on it, it kind of looks like we're in New York.
Yeah,
right?
it's like a brownstone Brooklyn vibe.
So we would like zoom in to like, we'd find the best corner of the house with like the best looking brick and zoom in on Kory's face, like right here, right? Because we can't just have him be the only model, but we couldn't afford models. And so we would just take these pictures.
But yeah,
that was it.
But you got to 300,000 followers just with the two of you and your house and Nordstrom Rack.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, scrappy. I would just contextually, like whatever it is you're doing, you think you don't have the resources to do it.
No,
I think you're
like
lying to yourself.
legit shoe companies were
Hired us
hiring us
to take their shoe
So they would
photos.
send us like Allen Edmonds, like their next spring collection. They would send it to Provo to our house,
And
and
we're
we were
like,
tasked with like making all the imagery. So
And
we
it was a projector screen that we bought at DI.
Yeah.
We went to DI and found a roll.
like infinity screens for we didn't have we just
No.
had like an old projector thing we found at DI.
No lighting.
We
We
were
just
try-
would find a good window.
Yeah,
Like, just like
all
this works.
natural because we didn't have any lighting.
I freaking love it. Just like the part of this that I really just want to hit on is like the scrappiness, the resourcefulness, like whatever you're saying to yourself, like why you can't, you're lying to yourself. It's not true. Like if you want to do it and you're creative enough, you can.
Yeah, that scrappiness that we had like 10 years ago,
Still
like
have to have
it's
it.
even easier now. Like you can learn, there's no knowledge gap anymore. Like you want to learn something, freaking learn it. There's no excuses anymore.
100%. Okay, so we're showing Spain and we're showing your first samples.
Oh.
So let's talk a little bit about the journey from being a sock manufacturer to being a shoe manufacturer.
Yeah. So eventually our Instagram account looks so much like a shoe company that we start getting hit up by manufacturers that are like, we'd love to make your shoes for you. And we're like, okay, we don't make shoes, but maybe we should. And so I was pregnant with our daughter, our second at this point, and Kory starts working on some designs, talking to a factory in Spain, and they say, look, you just have to come out. Like, we won't really talk to you unless you come out here. And so my daughter was breech, and I was like, let's just wait till she's here. We'll see if I have to have a C-section or not. That'll, adjust the timing. And so she was born, and that night I booked Kory flights to go to Spain 2 weeks later. So I was just like,
I want to make sure everybody heard that. Like,
Yes, she did.
Legit the night
She-
the night you had the baby, you booked tickets.
because
Yes.
she was born breech.
Yeah.
I didn't have a C-section. Everything is fine. And I was like,
It's
okay,
fine.
you're good to go.
Another part of Mallory is it's fine.
Yeah, it's fine,
It's
right?
fine.
Like,
Yeah. Well, and I wanted him to just go and get back, right? Because we're coming into like shoe and boot season, we think. We don't know.
we
We've
don't
never
know,
done
but
it.
we're like, now's a good time. to
Yeah,
launch
it was
a shoe
September.
company.
We're like, we should probably have this ready for fall, winter. And so he goes out, designs all the shoes, comes back. We photograph them on our like little thing. But this is when he's unboxing the first samples.
Yeah.
Which is just the face of like, I think this could work. It's my favorite picture from Taft because his face is like, at this point, Taft in the beginning was so awesome for us because we went from making $12,000 a month, or sorry, not a month, a year,
Yeah.
$12,000 a year as students at BYU to Taft could pay us $50,000. So we're like,
we're
feeling
so
good.
rich, man.
We're feeling good.
We're so rich.
But we've never seen nice shoes like this, right? Like Nordstrom Rack doesn't have this. And so he unboxes them, and to me, it's the face of like, this is the nicest shoe I've ever seen, and we made it, right? Like, it was so good.
That photo on the left is from that trip. And so I stayed at this place. Has anyone ever heard of Alicante in Spain? It's kind of like the St. George for Swedish people, kind of. It's like you go there and there's like beaches and there's like Malibu weather and there's golf courses. And so I stayed at this, I thought it was genius. It was a golf course and a hotel all in one. I'm like, yes. And that's a picture when I was eating dinner by myself in this foreign country. And I sent it to Mallory, I'm sure. And the caption to that photo, or, and the text was something like, I am so nauseously lonely and sad.
Oh.
Like that was a really, really hard trip for me. I was really homesick, even though it was, 4 or 5 days, I was so homesick. And it looks beautiful though. Looking back, I'm like, wow, what a beautiful
looks
place.
fantastic.
If I had her by my side, it would feel that way. But on that trip, it was a really, really difficult trip. And I speak Spanish, but all of the shoe vocabulary was really new, and it was just really difficult. And then on the right, so after that trip, maybe 6 weeks later, we get these big boxes, our first samples ever. And we unboxed them, and I remember thinking, like, my face really says it all. It's like, wow,
You're like a kid at Christmas.
We really might
You're
have
a kid at
something.
Christmas.
Like, we've bought hundreds of pairs of Nordstrom Rack shoes at this point, and these are freaking awesome. And these are our own, and they had Taft on the bottom. They were amazing. And so from that point on, we never ever ordered socks again. And we decided that we're going to become a shoe company.
Okay, so it's ready. Your time to launch. You post on your Instagram. You know, here's the shoes. They're going to be ready in.
Well, this is what's crazy though, is how we actually ended up launching. We took pictures of the shoes. We invited all of our friends over to tell us their favorites. We narrowed it down to 3 favorites, and we're just excited, but we don't really know what to do.
Yeah, is Taylor Murphy's here, right? Did you come to our house or that little event where we put like poker chips in the shoes? No, right?
It was great.
Maybe, but
they weren't poker chips. They were wood slices from Hobby Lobby, because that's what we could
office
get
was it that we used?
It was the Gather office.
The Gather. So Gather had an office on Center Street, and they let us rent it out. They just let us use it for free, and we put all the shoes in a row.
Gave
and
everybody
every
chips.
guest we gave them like 3 little wood chips,
Yeah.
and they could put it in the shoe that was their favorite.
Yeah.
And so we
At the end
kind
of
of
the night, we dumped them out.
Yeah, we
counted. We're
counted
this is
them.
a
We're like,
winner.
okay, these
This
are
is
the
a
best
winner.
Did you
3.
pick the 3 that the people
Yeah,
Oh
we did.
yeah, we actually
Oh
did.
my gosh.
Yeah, we actually did. And because there were definitely some ugly ones too, but they chose the good ones. And then like just a week or so later, something for our socks went like mega viral on Reddit.
Because we knew we needed to sell through the socks, because we're going to do
Well, we
shoes
also
now.
had no money.
Yeah,
Like she's
that's
telling
true.
me, it's fine, and I have a landlord that's like $675. And I'm like, it's not fine. So we need to make some money. So we launched our socks, like
Yeah.
10 pairs for $20. These were like,
They were usually $12.
they were
a pair.
$12 a pair, and we did 10 for
wow.
So
20.
we were like, we can't post that on Instagram.
Yeah.
We can't dilute the
Just
brand.
leaving it
we'll
on
just
Reddit.
hope someone finds it.
Yeah. And then someone found it. They posted it on Reddit.
Frugal
And-
male fashion.
That ends up on the homepage of Reddit. And so we have like hundreds of thousands of visitors that day. We run out of socks. We're like, we don't know how many socks. We
We're
never
going to
even
our
tracked
warehouse to
inventory.
count on a Sunday, because we never checked.
Yeah, we never tracked inventory.
Because we
And
never
so
needed to. There were so many. When you have like hundreds of thousands
Yeah.
and you sell 2 a day,
we
you're
just
like, we're fine.
we just
Don't
turn
count
off
it.
the socks entirely. But a couple days prior, we took pictures of these shoes. And so we're like, hey, we're out of socks, but we have these shoes. Here's some pictures. Let us know what you think. And we started getting comments like, hey, I'd buy those.
Yeah.
And so then we're like, all right. So we make some Shopify product pages. We name them after the people that were in the room. We make an arbitrary price of $189, and we launch them. And that night we sold over 400 pairs of shoes. And then, so we did 117K in revenue one year. The next year, basically from November, that was November like 19th, November to December, we did 1.7 million in the next year.
Sick.
Yeah.
It was so funny.
Yeah, our first full year of shoes, we did 5.7.
Again! Good job.
Which that was 10 years ago now.
Now we're showing the pictures of the warehouse.
Yeah,
and then
that was when we were counting inventory. We called, it was a Sunday, so we were like panic calling the owners of the warehouse and being like, can we please come count socks? Like we might be selling stuff we don't have. And then we were like, we can't count these, just turn it off.
Yeah, because like she has a baby in her chest.
Yeah.
And I don't remember the
Yeah,
picture, but we
this
have
is
like
the
2
thing.
little
We're
babies.
still in the zone where like our daughter was just born.
Yeah,
and
she was
now
she
at
was
this
like a
point-
2-month-old.
Yeah.
You know, so we go to the warehouse in Bluffdale here, like across the freeway.
Yeah.
And we count all the socks, and we quickly realized, like, we're not counting these socks. So we just turn it off, because this was at the time we used to spray all of our socks with cologne.
And
Oh, wow.
Before we dropped them.
And so it was like, we can't even fulfill, we can't spray them with cologne, let's just turn them off. And then we switched to shoes. And that photo on the right is, so in November of 2019, we open our,
When does Taft go viral for that first order of shoes? What year is that?
That's November 2015.
Okay.
Yeah.
So over let's just do the year-to-year journey before that store.
Okay. Revenue numbers, 1.7 was 2015, 2016,
Yeah.
5.7, 10.8, 14.4.
And then you at 14.4, you're like, we're gonna go retail. We're not just gonna do online.
Yeah, it was like
But more so just
omni-channel.
Kind of like more like guide shops. Like we weren't thinking we were going to sell a ton from them. It was just like we have so many customers here, and if we give them somewhere they can try on shoes, they're going to.
Yeah, like Manhattan and Brooklyn were like number 1 and number 3 markets.
Okay.
So we're like, okay, in Soho, let's like make a store. It'll be like a sizing guide shop essentially.
Yeah.
It housed inventory, but yeah, so that's a picture of us. We went to New York as a family, which again, I don't travel much, but we went to New York. It was such a special experience. We opened that store. We had a big, we spent a ton of money on PR. We got like
Huge
famous
party.
people at the
Yeah.
opening.
This guy comes up to me. He's like, "Man, this party's a little too crazy." And I was like, "Yeah, it
Yeah,
is." Like totally. I was like, "He's like, who are you?" I was like, "I'm Mallory. I'm one of the founders of Taft." He was like, It's a great party. It's really, I mean, it's a really great party.
Yeah, we had
It's a great party.
we had like
really
famous
great.
people there. It was awesome. And so that's November 2019.
You know what happened right there?
I mean,
that
a
part of
couple
the-
months later, right? Anyone
world
remember
shut down.
COVID? Like, especially in downtown, New York City. And so you couldn't.
I was
have
living in
worse
Connecticut
time.
at the time.
Yeah,
it was the
it
worst.
was like back east. It was like so.
The world is over. Nobody moved.
So rough timing on that store, but we ended up opening 5 or 6 more stores after that too.
So before we get to like the end game of Taft, like any lessons or things that you would want people to know in terms of like how you scaled or like what do you miss about it? Like what are the things that you are saying like the lessons learned as you think about doing Tough Pops now and as you're doing it? Like what have you taken away from Taft that is relevant for people who are building today?
Yeah. I think the biggest one that we've talked about over the years is just like the they zig, we zag mentality. Like that was, we had so much stacked against us by way of companies that had more money, more heritage, more everything than we did. And so for us, it was like, if we just go make a copycat of what they make, but we say we're nice and we're new, buy it from us. Like why? Why would they, And we weren't even cheaper, like that, like we had to be different. The only option was that our shoes had to look different than everybody else's shoes. And that's, I think, the biggest takeaway is like when you don't have the same resources, that's the only thing you actually have is being scrappy and being different. And that was like, I don't know, kind of what we asked ourselves at every step of the way was like, is this different enough?
Yeah, I think your product being really differentiated is one of the most powerful things you can do because it sells itself in a single photo.
Yeah.
Right. Like there's so many things that are similar or a riff off of something else. And like everything is easier if your product is really unique and different. And I think now that I'm removed a little bit, not that we're in the end game necessarily, but like being removed, I think one thing I would do differently and we will do differently is to celebrate along the way. Like now I don't celebrate the transaction, but I wish I could celebrate with those people that were in the room going to a lunch together, celebrating our first $1 million day, or celebrate, whatever those milestones were. Like I was in the office thinking, on our first $1 million day, everyone's celebrating. And I'm sure we ordered, pizza, whatever. And I went in the office and Mallory was like, man, Kory, what's wrong? And I was like, Mal, can you imagine how much Amazon does in a day?
And then he goes,
And
in
it's
an
like,
hour?
what's wrong with me? Like, gosh, those little moments, it's like we had such a special thing with such special people. And I think it's to really celebrate those victories along the way and live in the moment because they don't last forever. And you don't really know what you have until it's gone.
Yeah. No, I think I definitely appreciate both of those comments. I think the zig and the zag from an operational perspective is super relevant. You got to be prepared for like how you exist when everybody is like, coming for you. You'd obviously ruffled some feathers. You came on strong. You were this nothing to something very quickly.
No, we made a splash.
You got over 1 million followers on Instagram. Like you became something that was very noticeable in this space.
Yes.
So as you think about, obviously you can't control what happened during COVID. The macro situation will always win. So when you think about like what got you to the point when you were ready to sell or what was going on, maybe this picture. Yeah, maybe let's spend a second on.
Also, I have to excuse myself. I'm not being rude in texting. It's my son has called 5 times, and they're going to Lowe's Extreme Airsports, and he's like, sign the waiver. I'm like, okay, I'm sorry.
Go sign the waiver, Mom.
I signed it. But
Yeah, so this is I'm sure many of you have seen this, but I posted it on LinkedIn a couple years ago, and it went
super viral.
Yeah. It was pretty significant, and so the picture on the left is from Ernst & Young Entrepreneur of the Year, which is who's been to that event. It's like the most beautiful night. It's tuxes and gowns and amazing food, and so I was in a category with Davis Smith from Cotopaxi and Vess Pearson with Aptiv, and somehow I won, which was silly. Now looking back, it's like, why did I win? I should not have won, but I won. And so it was like the highlight of my career.
Yeah.
And then that picture on the right was like, I think it's like either 9 days before or after. I don't really remember, but all of the interviews for Ernst, like the Entrepreneur of the Year thing, were at Red Butte Gardens, which is really close to what was then called the Utah Neuropsychiatric Institute. And so it was like geographically very close to each other. And one day I was going to this cool Red Butte Gardens, like the who's who of entrepreneurs in the state are like interviewing me for this prestigious award. And then like a week later, I'm going left and checking myself into this mental institute on the, you know, the withdrawals and addicts floor, because there was no space on the suicide floor. And so it was like a really rough experience, but like the juxtaposition of those two things in such close proximity geographically and in terms of time was just so striking. And I think that this obviously highlights how, one, we never know what's really going on. You know, like you, it's like I could look at you and your life and everything you do, I don't know the whole story. And
I'm broken, just so you all know.
we all are, right? And like I think that's why this resonated so strongly. And it's a pretty important snapshot of a moment that has taught a lot of lessons.
No, totally. Now, from the partner's perspective, I'd love to hear, like, what are you doing as this is growing? He's obviously having the ups and downs of life, and like, how does your it's fine mentality play here?
Yes, I mean, I think this is where, you know, it was the most put to the test, right? Because everything's fine until your husband dies. Like that's the line where everything's not fine anymore.
Yeah.
And so that's my limit, right? Like that's where you hit it. And so for me, my approach was more just, I felt very protective of Kory in terms of like, we can't let work ever matter more than this. You know, I remember we had really incredible investors, like super, super awesome. But there was one particular conversation where Kory was really struggling. I called one of our investors who was a friend, and I said, I think we need to sell. And it was pretty soon after we raised. And he goes, you can't do that. Like, that would be a disaster. And he was the most, I don't know, empathetic towards mental health. And so I felt pretty safe calling him and being like, hey, we're done. You know, like, this is it. And he was like, we can't, you know. And for me, that was a moment where I was like, okay, no one's going to prioritize this for us. Like, this is it. Like, we have to do it ourselves. No one's going to come in and tap you out. You know, like, when you've finished running the race, you have to say, I'm done. You know, no one else is going to be like, you look tired. And truly. And so for me, I just felt like that was the lens through which I saw everything. And so Taft, it was like, yeah, this is great, but none of it matters if he's not okay for me, right? Like, none of that is actually relevant. So we'd see people around this time and they're like, oh my gosh, you guys are killing it, which is, I don't know, we should take that out of our vocabulary because no one feels like they're killing it ever.
Yeah.
But people would come to me like, you guys are killing it. And I'm like, oh, okay.
If you only knew.
If you only knew. Like, because, right, none of the work matters if you feel like this. You know, like, you look at that picture and it's like, you can't tell someone like, hey, we had a great sales day. It's like, do you think I care? Or we had a bad sales day.
Yeah.
Like, it doesn't matter. And so for me, I just felt so protective. And ultimately, I just knew we needed to sell Taft as soon as there was opportunity. Like, I was just like, we're done. We've made it. Let's finish it, round it out, and do something else.
So I think I'm going to summarize this next part because I want to get to the, like, what's future, if that's okay. That you end up selling. It is, you know, not life-changing from a return perspective for you all.
Yeah.
But, you know, you're doing well. Like, life, you get a chance to kind of like take a breath, and now you're like, okay, well, I'm an exited entrepreneur, but what am I going to do next? Like, I don't have enough money to stop working. I have to do something. Like, you know, we talked about, like, you at the beginning around linguistics, and like that major wasn't necessarily going to work at McKinsey. Like, well, now what? And so, you know, one of the things I respect the most about Kory is, like, I mean, you might not know this, but he like sells roofs now. Like, right now, we can buy a roof through Kory. Is that a true statement?
Guys, if you or someone you know needs a great roof, please come talk to me. Seriously. I also make like UGC videos on Fiverr for like $100 a pop. Seriously, like, the scrappiness is not gone. Now the risk is higher. The number of mouths we feed is greater than it was. I don't have Pell Grants anymore. And so, yeah, the scrappiness is like, and it's interesting because I think most people, I'm treading like a really fine line here because I want to look legit. I want to look like an authority. I want to look successful. I want to be honest. And I also have this immediate need to provide for my family. 100%. And so in a certain group, like literally this morning, I was on a sales call. Like, I've never done sales in my life, but like the roofing company I sell for has like a sales competition. And I've never been in a sales meeting in my life. And I'm just
Kory
sitting on
won't
this
go door
thing.
to door, so he's like,
And I
this
won't
is
go
not-
door to door. I just can't. And so I'm literally like, I'm watching this guy that has like, you know, pretty little experience.
Yeah.
And we're trying to sell roofs in Utah and Arizona. And then I'm like, in a couple hours, there's going to be this room full of people that think I'm pretty cool. And on this call, I'm putting up a goose egg for the month of May so far. It was just this really interesting thing.
Yeah.
And so, you know, I'm grinding and being scrappy so that I can, you know, basically fund Tough Pops.
I freaking love it. Can we give that a round of applause?
It doesn't feel like it feels inefficient and dumb. I feel silly sometimes, to be honest, because I just feel like disappointed in myself. Like I fumbled the bag. I haven't leveraged my gifts, you know? So thanks for the claps. It's kind of a tough phase of my life right now because I just feel like disappointed in myself, but I appreciate the encouragement.
No, I mean, is there anybody here who feels disappointed in themselves sometimes? I mean, I think that's pretty human. So
Kory has the bar pretty high, as we've seen by we're not Amazon though, so are we doing?
yeah. Okay, I'm gonna go to the next one. Or is that it? Okay, okay, we don't have a Tough Pops picture. So let's talk about what Tough Pops is now then.
Yes.
Can you guys kind of like talk through like
Yeah.
why Tough Pops, like how you came to it,
Yep.
like why is
So-
this the thing that you're pouring your heart into?
So-
Because I want to, sorry, the one other thing. One of the reasons why we discussed this, like, would you choose, if you could go back and change time, would you have Taft now or not? She was a no, he was a potential yes, because of the opportunity with 1 million followers, what you could do with it. So I'm just summarizing that.
Yes.
Now, if you still had Taft, you could go to that 1 million followers that, you know, Taft has, and
Dude, I can sell them popsicles.
sell 20.
Yeah, I can sell them roofs. I can sell them anything.
So that's the, you know, I just want to like throw that out there. That was a question I had. You might have that question too.
Yeah.
But let's talk a little bit about like, so how do you think about things now in terms of how you build the brand, what you're going to
Yeah.
do with Tough Pops?
So I think, you know, the idea from Tough Pops came, it was 2 years ago now, that I was sitting in our bedroom and I texted Kory and I was like, I have a really good idea, but I don't dare Google it because someone's probably beat me to it, right? And so I texted him like protein popsicles. Like, is anybody doing this? And we're Googling it and there's just recipes on websites, but nothing there really. And so we just kept cranking on it. And Kory was working for a family office at that point. We had been done at Taft. We had sold, moved on, but I dropped my mic twice. So if it's cutting in,
Yeah, we might owe Pelion some money. Seen some
maybe
scrappy.
Pelion has enough money.
All right, shout out the AV team here at Pelion.
If
Thank
it
you.
has problems, it's me. But I just love the idea that there's this whole group. You know, I feel like protein is traditionally kind of a gym space. And I fell in love with the idea of it being more accessible to everybody. Like Kory wakes up at 5:30 every morning to work out. I do yoga from the living room, right? Like I don't buy bucked up, shocker.
Yeah, like bucked up. It's like sweat, chains, fire, man, gym. You know, it's like not just those people need protein.
Yeah.
Everyone does.
Yeah.
You know.
And that was what Tough Pops was born from, is I felt like everybody needs it. And I wanted to create a brand, which shout out to Jace. Jace did all of our packaging, all of our stuff.
Let's go, Jace.
Which I'm sure by the end of like probably 2 years, I guess I called you first.
Yeah, he's tired of us. Thanks for coming. Free Chick-fil-A.
You know, I'm sending him emails like, can you draw a cow? Like, I just want a cow eating grass and with a halo, please. And he's like, I mean, sure. So he made all of our Tough Pops dreams come true. But I wanted the brand to feel like it was accessible to everyone. I'm trusting that the gym bros of the world, if you can call Kory that, you can. He's not really, but he does work out every day.
I'm not.
But I'm trusting that they'll find it no matter what. And so I wanted it to kind of be in the space where it's for everybody else too. So it's been hard. CPG's hard. Frozen's hard. It's expensive, hence the roofs. Like you start watching your bank account drain. Like I got a notification from our budgeting app that was like, you're $8,000 over on your grocery spend. And I was like, whoa, I'm more than that. Like, you caught that one. But
It's categorizing like industrial purchases of protein powder as like
yeah,
our Harman's
that's
order.
grocery. It's like $10,000 of protein powder. And it's like, Are
you guys taking investors? I'm curious. Like, have you thought about bringing in the capital?
I mean, we've thought about it, but I mean, to be determined. Like, it could all change in a day.
I think one thing that is important to note is that when I think about me and you compared to our 2015 selves, like now I understand why people want to invest in second-time entrepreneurs, because like I am a Hulk now.
Yeah.
And before I was like so naive and dumb.
Which
you know,
helps you get where you need to go. You need that too.
That naivete, that
We
blind
miss it a
optimism
little
is
bit.
really important because it allows you to do things that are improbable and unlikely. And so if you can muster up the courage to still do those things, coupled with your knowledge and experience that I have now, it's like, I can see why this can work, you know?
Love it. Yeah, so any last thoughts or anything you want to share with the group? Like, most of the people in the room are those trying to, you know, either are doing or going through hard times, or like, how do I wake up when I get hit across the face? Like, talk through like a little bit of like what keeps you going even though, you know, life's tough.
Yeah. I think from a brand perspective, you just have to be really human. Like, I think it's very exhausting to have your work self that needs to have everything all together, and then your home self that falls apart. Like, that's not a sustainable cycle, right? And so I think one thing that was a real strength for Kory as a CEO was he showed up as his whole self, broken, depressed, whatever was going on. There was no facade of like, I'm the leader that has it all put together. But this incredible thing happened where it gave everybody else permission to be the same, right? Like, I think we knew more about what was happening in our employees' lives, like intimate details of what they were struggling with, than probably anybody else I've ever come across. And it was because we set this precedent of like, you're safe to share, you know, like we're sending flowers for divorces and trying to like, you know, showing up at people's doorsteps after surgeries and things that you might just not typically hear about. And so I think you have to be fully human in all of your work. And then the other thing is just, it is fine. Like, truly, I'm not a worrier, and it's served me well. Kory is a worrier, and it's served him well in some ways, not in others. But I think what I've realized is I operate with the belief that everything's ultimately going to work out for my benefit. So our first production run, the mixer burned it. After I told him 5 times, please don't overheat it. It will separate. It'll be cottage cheese. And then he calls. He's like, this looks like mashed potatoes. And we're like, yeah, that was the thing you were supposed to not do, right? And Kory had this moment. We were driving down, because we're driving our family to Arizona for the run that's now off. And we're trying to reorder protein powder from the car to see if we can overnight it the next day. And, you know, it's all falling apart. And I was very proud because Kory took a deep breath and he goes, reptile brain gets nothing done. Like, let's think about this calmly. And it was incredible because we just went and we had a good trip. But I think you have to do that. Like, you have to just constantly come back to where it's like, it's all actually going to work out. Let's think about this. What's going to matter in 5 months or 5 years or beyond that, you know? And you have to just keep it in perspective or else it's too much.
Yeah, and those are the words of a woman that has lost a child before. And so if she feels that way, we should all feel that way. I think I've been thinking about this. It sounds like it's like a LinkedIn post in the making. It's just something that's been on my mind.
Yeah.
But like, you know, we've had some professional drafts recently. And it's always interesting because sometimes I love sports. And sometimes people get drafted because of their skills, like on the field or on the court. And sometimes there's people that get drafted like just because of their build. Like, you guys know what I'm talking about? Like when it's like, hey, he's just 6'7", 325. It doesn't matter. He's a specimen. We can craft the rest, right? And like, I think about that a lot actually, because you know, during the draft they talk about, you know, Cooper Flagg. It's like, yes, he's going to go, you know, number 1, of course.
Please let
but
him
then
go
you
to
have
the
these other people that you've never heard of, and it's like he's just a frame, and then we can do something with that.
Yeah. Malleable.
Like, each of us has our frame, right? Like, there's things that you have been given that cannot be taught. And sometimes we put a lot of focus on the things that we learned in school or even our work experience. Like, we over-index towards the importance of those things, and you forget the things that make you, that make you different than everyone else. And I've been thinking a lot about that because the reason why I would be a great employee or a great the reason why I'm a good founder and a good entrepreneur is not the things I've learned. It's not my degree. It's the innate things. It's my frame. It's my 6'7" build at 320, whatever it is. Like, those are the things that make you truly special. And I think we always think about, oh, I need to go to Harvard and I need to work at this place so I can work at that place. It's like, if you can look inside and figure out what makes you special and what your internal inherent gifts are, lean into those, leverage those, because those are way more special than anything that someone can learn on YouTube or in a podcast. And then lastly, I'm so grateful to live where we live. I've felt so much love and support from this state. I'm not from here, but I am from here now. And like an event like this where I feel like I'm loved and appreciated and like you're my friends, like I'm so grateful. Thank you for being here today. A quick reminder, like if you come here and nothing changes in your life, then don't come next time. Really, truly, it's like, okay, free Chick-fil-A, awesome, thank you, Wallaroo. Like, but don't come and then leave the same as when you came. Okay, I hope you learned something, you met someone, do something different on your way out that you weren't doing on your way in, or an event like this, Tyler's effort, Brandon's effort, Eric's effort, all these things, Pelion's contribution means nothing. Like the point is to change and be better. And I would just encourage you to make sure that your life is different after this event than it was before this event.
Mic drop. Can we give a round of applause?